Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. I'm Rick Walker. You're watching the Maverick News Channel. I'm flying solo tonight, except for you guys, because you're all with me. And I appreciate everybody stopping by and tuning in again tonight. And we have a lot to talk about. Tonight's broadcast is going to be a little shorter for a bunch of different reasons. But we're just going to have more of a condensed show this evening. But we are going to talk about this situation with the Nordstream Pipeline coming out of Russia. There has been an underwater explosion. Gas is bubbling up to the surface. There are indications this is an act of sabotage. It is not clear at this time who is responsible. We will also take a look at the new prime minister for Italy that the radical left is describing as far right. And we'll discuss that just a little bit as well. And those are the two sort of top stories for this evening. We'll also update you, or we'll get the politicians in Canada to update you on the situation with the response, the relief efforts to the big storm, Hurricane Fiona, and the remnants of that blew through Atlantic Canada, causing extensive damage. And we'll take a brief look tonight as well at what is going on with preparations for Hurricane Ian, as it has already made landfall in Cuba and is set to make landfall in Florida. So we'll take a look at that. Stay with me. When we come back, we'll dig into this whole issue surrounding the explosion and the pipeline coming out of Russia. Don't go away. More ahead right after this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
And we're back. So, this situation with the pipeline looks like it could result, if it isn't escalation in itself, where the war in Ukraine is concerned, it looks like it will lead to additional escalation. It certainly seems to be related to all of the it's absolutely related to the war. Denmark said today that it believes deliberate actions by unknown perpetrators are behind these big leaks. I'm just queuing up video for you here. Hang on here a second. So we'll start with this this report for you, showing aerial footage of the gas bubbling to the surface. Let's drop in on this And I'll come back with more information.
It started with Monday's warning to Danish fishermen avoid a Baltic Sea area that was the scene of an unusual gas leak. Now, seismologists confirmed those were in fact explosions, at least 2 of them, right near the path of Nord Stream 1 and 2, the Russian gas pipelines to Germany, currently offline since sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine stiffened. This footage, filmed by the Danish military, shows a bubbling whirlpool in the Baltic Sea caused by the gas leaking out. Scientists are cautious, politicians are blunt.
There are 3 leaks, even with some distance between them, and that is why it is hard to imagine that what is happening is a coincidence.
Nie znamy dzisiaj jeszcze szczegółów tego, co się
We
stało,
don't yet know all the
ale
details of what
widzimy
happened,
wyraźnie, że jest to
but
akt
we see
sabotażu.
clearly that this
Akt,
is
który
an act of sabotage,
prawdopodobnie oznacza
an
kolejny
act
etap
which likely means a
eskalacji
further stage of
tej
escalation
sytuacji, z
of the
którą mamy do
situation in
czynienia.
Ukraine.
And so the question is, who is responsible for this? What does all of this mean? Well, it's very difficult to say. At this point, it's all really speculation, educated guesses. But it is clear to, it seems, all those involved, and we're hearing this from the leaders of many governments tonight, that this appears to be an act of sabotage, that this was done deliberately. This absolutely destabilizes things even more. The Danish Prime Minister saying it is the authorities' clear assessment that these are deliberate actions, not accidents. But she added there is no information indicating who could be behind it, and rejected the suggestion that the incident was an attack on Denmark, saying that the leaks occurred in international waters. So this incident overshadows the inauguration of a pipeline that will bring Norwegian gas to Poland to help satisfy that continent's energy needs. Seismologists were looking at this, and they recorded the first explosion early Monday, southeast of the Danish island of Bornholm. And they said that a second blast northeast of the island that night was the equivalent of a magnitude 2.3 earthquake. So these were huge explosions underwater. But they say there's no doubt it was not an earthquake, absolutely an explosion or explosions. And now we see the gas bubbling to the surface. How does this affect everything? Well, it destabilizes the energy supply even more as we head into winter. And this further destabilizes the situation, especially for Germany, as we head into the colder weather. So it's kind of, who would benefit from this? You have to ask yourself, who would benefit the most from this, or who would benefit at all? Who would suffer as a result of this? Would the Russians blow this thing up? Would that make any sense? If they were going to cut off the gas supply, and it's their pipeline, and it's my understanding this is a pipeline that was recently built, why would they blow up their own pipeline? Why wouldn't they just turn it off if that's what they were going to do? in order to cut the energy supply to that part of Europe. Who else would do it? The British? The United States? We know that we've had ongoing discussions about reducing or eliminating Germany's reliance and dependence on Russia for gas and energy, Europe's dependence on Russia for the gas supply. And there has been talk about supplying gas from the United States and even Canada to Europe to replace that Russian gas. So one has to wonder what this is about. It certainly seems like it falls in line with the globalist agenda to reduce access, reduce supply of gas to the world, certainly to Europe. And this sort of makes a decision for Germany in the face and the wake of demands from Zelensky in Ukraine to stop purchasing gas from Russia. When the gas turbine was in for repairs in Canada, Zelensky criticized the Canadian government and said that he didn't want that turbine returned to Russia. But Canada sent it back, returned it. Zelensky not happy, very critical of the Canadian government for having done that. So Zelensky in Ukraine, he wants that energy cut off because he knows that is a source of revenue for Russia. Another reason why, really, for Russia, it doesn't seem to make sense to blow up their own pipeline. In the absence of real evidence, one way or the other, difficult to say who might be behind this whole thing. It looks like there might be some sort of investigation into this, but given the fact that we're involved in a war, an international war, maybe even what some would call a third world war, I'm not sure that any investigation is going to be thorough or fair or balanced or objective. So the escaped natural gas is made up almost entirely of methane, the second biggest contributor to climate change, they say, after carbon dioxide. So there's the obligatory climate change narrative bubbling again to the surface, if you will. That's the word that is finding its way into the mainstream media reports in the West. I'm just looking through some of the online reports here, and climate change keeps popping up. And as part of this story, but without the gas, it puts Europe's back up against the wall heading into the winter, especially Germany. And if they're energy strapped, you're going to see destabilization socially. You're going to see more protests. You'll see people suffering. You'll see industries shutting down. They can't produce steel. They probably can't even produce automobiles. It'll create supply chain issues. It will create food shortages. People could quite literally freeze to death in some cases over the winter without gas coming in, shortages of gas. So how serious is this? Well, it's absolutely going to affect the supply of gas to Europe. Very troubling, to say the least. Very, very troubling. We have some more aerial footage to show you of the gas bubbling to the surface there. These are aerial images. So this is a developing story. It really is breaking international news. Look at the size of that. That is huge. So a whole new development on the energy front, and something we should all definitely be concerned about, and we'll be watching very closely as we move ahead. Now, I could sit here and go on and on about this, but the reality is it's just this simple. We've had a couple of underwater explosions. That pipeline is damaged. It's leaking natural gas and methane, natural gas, into the water. It's bubbling to the surface. It appears to have been some sort of sabotage or deliberate attack. We do not know who is behind it, who might be responsible for it. From this point on, it's all speculation. There will be some sort of investigation. We could sit here and theorize, speculate, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really get us any closer to the truth, does it? We've already kind of taken an assessment of it, but there really, at this point, isn't a whole lot more to say about it because we just don't know. We don't have any additional facts. I think it will become clearer in terms of the overall big picture over the next 24 hours. We'll get a clearer assessment of this, but I will leave you with this as we kind of wrap up our coverage of this particular story tonight. Well, I want to show you this clip again of Biden and just remind you of what he said. And this goes back to February, and he was addressing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, saying that if Russia were to invade Ukraine, they would bring that pipeline to an end. And I'll just let this roll because I think it kind of gives you an indication of, well, it was sort of like foreshadowing, wasn't it?
A couple questions each. Reuters, Andrea.
This is back in February.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Chancellor Scholz. Mr. President,
And he was standing there with
wanted to ask you about this Nord Stream project
Chancellor
that you've long opposed. You didn't mention it just now by name, nor did Chancellor Scholz. Did you receive assurances from Chancellor Scholz today that Germany will in fact pull the plug on this project if Russia invades Ukraine? And did you discuss what the definition of invasion could be? And then Chancellor Scholz, wenn ich Sie fragen darf,
if I may ask you, Chancellor Scholz, you said there was some strategic ambiguity that was needed in terms of sanctions. I just wanted to know whether the sanctions you are envisaging and the EU is working on, and the US as well, are already finished, finalized, or is there still work ongoing? And you're not really saying what the details are. Is that just an excuse for Germany maybe to not support the SWIFT measures?
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the the border of Ukraine again, then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do that.
Thank you very much for your question. I want to be absolutely clear. We have intensively prepared everything to be ready with the necessary sanctions if there is a military aggression against Ukraine. And this.
So Biden made it clear, even back then, that they would bring that pipeline to an end. No details. And it's not their jurisdiction. It's not their pipeline. It's in Germany's control. But he says they'll bring it to an end. Well, something happened. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And we're back. Wanted to touch on the election of Italy's new prime minister, Giorgia Meloni. This signals the election of it signals the rise of conservatism or populism internationally. The election of this new prime minister in Italy, in my estimation, signals the rejection of this far left, radical left, globalist, fascist agenda that we're seeing from the World Economic Forum and other globalist organizations. The mainstream media has been describing the new PM as far right, neo-fascist. They're saying the election of Giorgia Meloni gives Italy the most radical far-right government since Mussolini. Mussolini was a fascist, supported Hitler. Italy was aligned with Germany during World War II and the Nazis. But I take exception to this ongoing rhetoric where conservatives and populists are consistently being described as far right and even as fascists. It's inaccurate and misleading. It's unfortunate that our education system has been so inadequate, especially in the West, especially in the United States and Canada, that today people do not understand politics, don't have a depth of understanding that allows them to recognize what fascism truly is. Today's generation, today's society in Canada and the US is so ill-informed that I think the way people view fascism and Nazism, Nazis, is based on a cliche that they've been exposed to through mass media, pop culture, movies like the Indiana Jones films, and even television shows like Hogan's Heroes. So today, the term Nazi is thrown around so casually, and it's always aimed at conservatives. And for a long time, I've said that we're going to get into a more in-depth discussion on the political spectrum, where fascism falls on that scale versus communism. And I keep saying here, and many people will disagree, and you're free to disagree, but I put fascism, Nazism, right in line with communism. Hitler was a socialist. You can disagree all you want, but it's right in the name. The approach that the Nazis took in Germany in World War II was absolutely socialistic. They provided all kinds of social programs to the people, but it was a fascistic economic system based on socialism with government control of privately owned corporations. So privately owned, but government controlled through regulations. And the people were employed through these big companies and given a lot of social benefits, even subsidized holidays, in some cases free housing, and so on. Today, people view fascism, Nazism through the lens of racism. To be sure, in World War II, we saw that. We saw that prior to World War II with the rise of Nazism in Germany. You saw it with the persecution of the Jews. You saw it with the death camps. No question about it. But I put it to you that that in itself does not define fascism. That's not what fascism in itself is. That's what fascism led to in Germany at the time. But fascism is a political ideology. Much of it centered around an economic system that is authoritarian, a system that strips people of their rights, and it is socialistic. It is a form of socialism. Big government, big control, police state, heavy-duty authoritarianism. Communism is much the same. Absolutely authoritarian, and it puts people's rights on the back burner. In fact, kind of just does away with them. And because both are authoritarian in nature, they are coercive. They use force to achieve their objectives. They have to. They use force to enforce their policies, to keep people in line, to make people comply. And we've seen that even today here in the West. And I would put it to you that our governments today, the ones in power, are quite fascistic. But if you listen to the new Prime Minister of Italy, she doesn't sound fascistic to me. She sounds nationalistic. Nationalism is in itself not fascistic. There are different forms of nationalism, and you can have ultranationalism like we're seeing in Ukraine, a form of ultranationalism that is endorsed by, supported by, promoted by the actual Nazis that are present in Ukraine, part of the Ukrainian military, and Nazis that have considerable political clout within Ukraine and are part of the government there and have direct influence over Zelensky in Ukraine. And they are involved in a form of ultranationalism that is absolutely fascistic. They are Nazis. And that is why they've been attacking the people in the Donbass region, because those people are largely Russian speaking. That area used to be part of Russia. And the ultranationalists want a national cleansing. They want to eliminate Russian culture from Ukraine. They want Ukraine for Ukrainians is their slogan. It's a heavy form of prejudice. But you see, it isn't necessarily about just persecuting Jews. It's so simplistic, and it's so hard to get people past that notion that Nazis just hate Jews. Nazis find scapegoats. And Nazis can come in a variety of forms. But at the core of all of it, just like communists, comes down to brute force, authoritarianism. But when I listen to this new Italian prime minister, now it sounds very populist to me. It sounds more like it's rooted in national pride and a desire to return to family values, personal responsibility. And at the core of it, it sounds like there's a desire to protect people's rights and freedoms. Now, I don't know a lot about Giorgia Meloni, but I think that what we're seeing in the mainstream media is distorted. Just like everything else we're hearing from the mainstream media these days, whether it's a description of conservatives in the United States who are described as domestic terrorists, or freedom truckers in Canada who are described as far-right, fascistic, misogynistic fringers, or the unvaccinated, people who think for themselves, people who love freedom. This is the kind of rhetoric that we keep hearing over and over again, and it's just an echo that I'm hearing coming out of Italy now, this same kind of rhetoric, an echo to describe the new prime minister. But there's also something else coming out of Italy, and that's the shouts, the calls for freedom, the calls for a return to national pride, common sense, family values from the people. That is those calls for freedom, for A return to that was heard loud and clear with the election of Giorgia Meloni. Here's a speech from her, and I think that once you hear this, and you'll have to read the subtitles here, but I think it will resonate with a lot of you in the audience here tonight.
Semplici consumatori. Quando sarò potrei farne tante altre di queste domande. A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi, perché la famiglia è un nemico?
In fact, what I'll do is I'll read this for you. This is about what we are doing here today.
A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi, perché la famiglia è un nemico?
Why is the family an enemy? Why is the family so frightening?
C'è una risposta unica per
There is
tutte
a
queste
single answer
domande.
to all these questions.
Perché ci definisce, perché è la
Because it
nostra
defines
identità.
us, because it is
Perché
our
tutto quello che
identity,
ci
because
definisce in questo tempo
everything
è
that
un nemico.
defines us is now an
Per chi
enemy.
vorrebbe che
For
non
those
avessimo
who would
più
like us
un'identità e
to
che
no
fossimo,
longer
che
have an
fossimo
identity
solamente
and to
schiavi,
simply be
consumatori
perfect
perfetti.
consumer slaves.
E allora è sotto attacco
And so they
l'identità
attack
nazionale,
national identity,
è
they
sotto
attack
attacco l'identità
religious
religiosa,
identity,
è sotto attacco
they
l'identità di
attack gender
genere, è sotto
identity, they
attacco
attack
l'identità
family
familiare.
identity.
Non devo potermi
I can't
definire
define myself as
italiana,
Italian, Christian,
cristiana,
woman, mother.
donna,
No.
madre, no. Io devo essere
I
cittadino
must be
X,
citizen
genere
X, gender
X,
X,
genitore
parent
1,
1,
genitore
parent
2, devo
2.
essere un numero.
I must be a number.
Perché quando sarò
Because
solamente
when
un
I
numero,
am only
quando
a
non avrò
number,
più
when I no longer
un'identità,
have
quando
an
non avrò
identity
più
or
radici,
roots,
beh allora sarò
then I will be
lo
the perfect
schiavo
slave at the
perfetto in
mercy
balia
of
della
financial
grande speculazione
speculators.
finanziaria. Il
The
consumatore
perfect
perfetto.
consumer.
E questa è la ragione per
That's
la
the reason
quale
why.
Questa è la ragione per la quale
That's
oggi
why we
noi facciamo
inspire so
tanta
much
paura.
fear. That's
Questa è la
why
ragione
this
per la
event
quale oggi
inspires so much
questo
fear.
appuntamento fa tanta paura. Perché noi non vogliamo essere
Because we
dei
do not
numeri, noi
want to be
siamo qui per
numbers.
dire
We
che noi
will
non siamo
defend
dei
the
numeri, noi
value of the
difenderemo il
human
valore della
being.
persona umana, di ogni singola
Every
persona
single
umana,
human
perché
being,
ognuno di
because
noi ha un
each of
codice
us
genetico
has a
unico
unique
e
genetic code
irripetibile.
that is
E questo,
unrepeatable.
piaccia o no,
And
è
like it or
sacro.
not, that is
Lo
sacred. We will
difenderemo,
defend it.
difenderemo
We will
Dio,
defend
la patria e la
God,
famiglia
country,
che
and
fanno tanto
family.
schifo a
Those
qualcuno.
things that disgust
Lo
people
faremo
so
per
much,
difendere
we
la
will do it to
nostra
defend our
libertà,
freedom.
perché noi non
Because we
saremo
will never be
mai
slaves and simple
schiavi e
consumers
semplici
at the
consumatori in
mercy of
balia della
financial
speculazione finanziaria.
speculators.
Ecco la nostra
That
missione,
is our
ecco perché
mission.
oggi
That
sono
is
venuta
why I
qui.
came here
Scriveva
today.
Chesterton ormai
wrote
più di un
more
secolo
than a
fa.
century ago.
Vediamo se ve lo
Let's see if I can
trovo.
find it.
Fuochi verranno attizzati
Fires will
per
be kindled
dimostrare
to
che 2 più 2
testify
fa
that
4.
2 and 2 make 4.
Spade verranno
Swords will be
sguainate
drawn to
per
prove that
dimostrare che le foglie
leaves are
sono verdi in
green in
estate.
summer.
Quel tempo è arrivato,
That time has
signori.
arrived.
Siamo
We are
pronti.
ready.
Grazie.
Thank you. And that is really it, isn't it? It's about individualism, individual rights and freedoms. The strength of the individual. As Dennis Prager often says, the larger the state, the smaller the citizen. That's what I've been saying all along. True diversity comes through the individual, through individualism, because every single person, regardless of their race, their religion, their color, their creed, every single individual is unique, just as she said. And there's real value in that. What we're talking about here is rights, freedoms, individual rights and freedoms. The right of the individual, the right to decide whether you put something into your body or you don't. That's why she's popular. That's why she won the election. That's why they're afraid of her on the radical left, because they are collectivists, socialists, authoritarians. That's what the communists, that's what the fascists, that's what they have in common. And today, people don't really understand what is going on because they're still trying to apply old rules, old labels to new situations. Just like they're trying to still describe the Soviet Union or describe Russia today as the Soviet Union. They still, in the West, we still think of Russia as it is, like as though it is the old Soviet Union. But that whole country has been transformed. Putin has to face elections. Now, our politicians may sit here and say, oh, the elections in Russia, they're a sham. They're an absolute sham. He's cooked the system. Maybe so. I don't know. But I do know this. Putin needs the support of the people to remain in power. Putin is an elected public official. They do have elections there, and the Russia of today is not like the old Soviet Union. Even China today is not like the China of yesteryear. Brutal, to be sure. Communist, absolutely. Am I a fan of the Chinese Communist Party? No. I'm not. But they have adopted, people say capitalism, but I would say it's free markets in China, and that is what is fueling their economy. Because even the Communist Party in China knows that they need a hybrid system in order to make their system work. They need the free market to generate the wealth to support their communistic social programs. That's what props everything up. That's what generates the wealth for them. And they've become an economic powerhouse using the free market and the power of freedom built into their system. So even today, China is not like the China of before. And this populist movement being described by the mainstream media, which is controlled by the far left, the radical left, the fascistic forces, the globalists even in the West, they describe the populists as far right. It's a diversion. You have communists and fascists way over here fighting for the right to be authoritarians and to crack down and put the boot on the neck of the people. That's what's going on. And then over here, there's the freedom movement. And the freedom movement is made up of people who were formerly with, in Canada, say the NDP, or in the United States, the Democrats, and conservatives. They come from all different political stripes, but they have one thing in common: freedom, a desire for freedom, civil rights. That's what binds the people within the freedom movement. I notice that there is a lot of disagreement within the freedom movement over how to achieve things through economic policy, fiscal policy, those kinds of things. But at the core, they all have a desire for individual rights and freedoms. So it's called populism. But that is a far cry and sort of the actual absolute opposite of Nazism, fascism, communism, anything authoritarian. Because populism puts the power back where it belongs, with the people. It truly does put it with the people. Communists always say, "Oh, it's they're the party of the people." They use that quite often in the way they describe their own political movements. But the reality is it's the opposite of that, because those systems always put the power right at the top politically, all of the power, in slightly different ways between communism and fascism. You have, in a communist system, they nationalize everything. The government tends to run everything. They take over entire industries. In Venezuela, they took over the oil industry. In communist China, they used to control everything. But what they've actually done now is they've adopted sort of a fascistic economic system themselves, because they allow the free market to operate, but the government has control over all of those industries through regulation. And you see the same thing here in the West now as well. You know, when General Motors went bankrupt, if you think about it in this way, they got a big bailout from both the US and Canadian governments. And I think Stephen Harper was actually in power at the time in Canada. And he was reluctant to do it, but he had to. I just watched an old interview with him actually a few weeks ago at Harvard. And he was sort of asked questions about his time in office as the prime minister in Canada. And he said he didn't really want to participate in that, but at the time he didn't really have much choice because the US government was going to bail out GM, the auto industry. But you think about what that really was. That was the government buying up General Motors, the biggest automaker in North America, for pennies on the dollar. By giving them the bailout, they got control of that company. They dictated from that point on how things would be run. And that was really the moment at which the electric car revolution really began. That gave the government the control that they needed over the largest automaker in order to push that agenda forward. And that's what we're seeing even today. It's moved forward from there. And GM was the key because every other automaker relies on General Motors because of the way the parts industry works. Without General Motors, the other car companies would have been in trouble because of the supply chain issues, because all those companies outsource parts production, and those parts producers flow parts back into the factories for all the different automakers in North America. And without GM, the biggest producer, the biggest assembler, propping up all those parts companies, everything would have started to fall apart and would have been restructured, and you would have had a shadow of what the industry was. So the government was able to move in, take over, GM. They also got big control then, or big influence over the other automakers, not just in North America, but even around the world. And so the whole global push began at that moment in a really heavy duty way toward the production of electric vehicles. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So now you have an entire industry that is producing goods for the marketplace based not on market demand, not on the free market. It's entirely being driven by government initiative, government regulation, government policy. These companies are controlled through regulation, through government grants, through financial incentives and penalties by government. The government gets what it wants or else. And if you're a producer in that industry and you don't participate, you'll get canceled. You won't be able to function. They won't allow you to function. If you want to produce gasoline-powered cars, forget it. You're out of business anyway because they're just going to outlaw them. The public doesn't get a choice, and no producer will be allowed to by 2035. So who's going to invest in that now? Nobody, because of government regulation. That's fascistic. You take away choice. That's a fascistic economic system, and we're seeing it all through our society. And now you have ESG scores for corporations. All the companies are woke. All the big corporations are like that. That is a form of fascism. And they use the social programs also to hold you hostage. You feel like you're getting things for free. But the more they give you, the more they buy you. The more they buy you, the more you become a slave to them. That's why personal responsibility comes back on the other side of the equation. We all need to be responsible for ourselves so that we can then free ourselves of our entanglements and our obligations to the state. As long as we're beholden to the state, we won't be able to speak our mind. We won't be able to speak out because that's the price you pay. Think about it. The boss is now the government. They're your boss. They own you. They give you what you have, everything. You'll own nothing and be happy. That's why we're seeing pushback, folks. But make no mistake, the populist movement, far from fascist, the absolute opposite. What do we see out there? We see Antifa. Antifa. Anti-fascist. They are the fascists. They are the muscle on the street. They're the modern day brown shirts, only now they wear black. They're even darker. They enforce. They use violence to target freedom fighters, populists, people who love their country, people who want to worship in their own way, people who want to fight for their families, who want to protect their children, who want to shield their children from indoctrination, from sexual predators, even within our schools. And yet our media today portrays a new prime minister in Italy as being far right. Neo-fascist is the word they're using tonight to describe her. And as radical as Mussolini. Now, I don't know much about her, but I'm inclined to think that that is a completely inaccurate assessment, especially after listening to what she just said. That sounds more in alignment with conservatives, family-oriented people, people who still have faith in a higher power, people who still cherish rights and freedoms, who believe that our rights and freedoms come from a higher place, not from a human being, from God. And it's that belief that protects us all through our constitutions, as so written. And it should really be the government's responsibility to uphold our constitutions in a way that protects our rights and freedoms. That's actually their obligation and their duty. But you know they're afraid. They're always afraid on the left. They're always afraid of freedom fighters, of patriots, people who love their countries and their families. That's why they resort to authoritarian measures. To tax you, to penalize you, to coerce you, to make you comply. They can't even imagine freedom. To them, freedom is security, a false sense of security. They think the government will take care of them. That's why they're willing to give up their freedom. That's what scares me. It scares me more than anything because I know that the government doesn't really care about us. These politicians, they just care about power. They care about their own elite lifestyle. They are the ones that abuse the power. They have been overreaching. And it's because they're afraid that they continue to squeeze even harder because they always feel like they're losing their grip. The media, they play the game. They're part of it. They control us through the media. They shape the way people think, and it does work. It's so powerful. They have people convinced that conservatives are now fascists. Conservatives are Nazis, domestic terrorists. It's a war. It's an absolute war. And at the heart of their narrative is a giant lie. They lie to us every single day about everything. It's Orwellian. The lie has become a distortion wrapped up in a house of mirrors with distorted funhouse, crazy mirrors that you look in, and everything is all distorted and not real anymore. So now you have teachers in schools wearing giant prosthetic breasts. And we're told that we have to tolerate that that's okay, that to say anything about it is to be bigoted or sexist or homophobic, when in reality it's just absurd and unprofessional and an assault on the family, an assault on common sense, an assault on reality. They're not living in reality. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the attacks. I'm tired of the polarization. I'm tired of the misdirection. I'm tired of the way that they lie to us day after day. And I'm tired of the way that they're destroying the future for our children and our grandchildren. And I'm tired of the way that they manipulate the economy and steal from us through their economic policies by printing money to make the money that people have saved worth nothing. I'm just tired of it. And even though we're gaining ground on the freedom front with the mandates on travel being ruled back finally in Canada and other measures being pulled back, it still feels like they're playing a game. It's quite evident that they are. And it seems that even just by eliminating these travel mandates at the border right now, it's a way for them to avoid scrutiny and judgment in the courts, as these constitutional challenges are just set to get underway. And now they're just pulling the mandates. And even Raj, one of our freedom reporters here, with his challenge to the Human Rights Commission on that very issue, a challenge that had real teeth. They delayed and they delayed until that portion of the regulation was rolled back. And so now they've decided that no need for Raj's case to go forward because it's no longer relevant. It's moot. So they undermined him. They cut him off at the knees. And his case was important. It could have set an absolute precedent. that they found and out. The Human Rights Commission didn't want to deal with that because funding from the federal government, they didn't really want to have to take on the federal government on that issue. Because really, if you look at even the Human Rights Commission, they're woke. They've been infiltrated. They have the cancer of cancel culture embedded within their organization. The problem there truly is systemic, but the problem is not systemic racism. It's systemic wokeism, systemic cancel culture. It's disgusting. And it actually undermines the true purpose of what the Human Rights Commission is supposed to be about. And so they looked for an excuse to dismiss a very legitimate case. Where does it end? Where does it stop? It stops, I guess, when we get these radical politicians out and wake some people up. But I don't know exactly how we get there, because even as we seem to be making progress, I also see, some erosion taking place on the freedom front. Because the other side, these far left radicals, and especially through the media, the use of the media, they are constantly attacking. And they're good at it. And they've been dividing us. And there are people, I think, even within the freedom movement itself, that have been doing some damage because they've been a little bit misguided. And there's a certain level of illness within the freedom movement itself as well that has undermined things a little bit, because people can't get focused, and they're engaging in a lot of activity that is wasting a lot of energy. I'm discouraged, but still optimistic and hopeful. And I think we are still going to win, but we need to get clear of mind, set very defined goals. We need to get organized, regroup. It's time to regroup. And I think we will in Canada and the US. Maybe it'll start with the midterms in the United States. We're seeing it in Europe. We just saw it in Italy with the election of this new prime minister. And that has the people on the left afraid. They are petrified. But people are beginning to see through it. And a lot of that is because of social media, because of independent media out there. It's an information war. But somehow we have to cut through this noise and these old cliches. I don't think these old political labels truly apply anymore. We know the game, we know the tactics, but everybody's still wrapped up in these old ideas of the left versus the right. In reality, the radical elements on both of those fronts, whether it's the fascists or the communists, I am telling you, they are working together in this crazy, unholy alliance. The best way to describe them is globalists. Socialistic authoritarians with a focus on forming a one-world government. It's real. It's very real. They've come together. I think it's more fascistic than it is communistic. But there's nothing philanthropic about communism. Nothing charitable about it. There's nothing feel good about it. Not one damn thing. It's hard to get people to let go of the idea that the government is going to give them everything they need. I don't know if we'll get there. In the end, as has always been the case, we'll end up with some sort of a hybrid system. Even if you bring freedom back to the forefront, there will be an underlying current of some form of socialism attached to it. That's the way it is around the world. That's the way it's always been. There has never actually been a true free market or even capitalistic society tried or employed anywhere. It just has never really happened. Everywhere you have some sort of a mix. It just depends on what degree you get. How much socialism? Well, the more you get, the more socialism you get, the more government control you get, the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen, the less freedom you have, the less say you have over your own destiny, the less choice you have. If you have government-run healthcare, you only have one place to go. You don't have any choice. And if you want care, you want a heart transplant today in Canada, you have to get the thing in the shoulder. If you don't do that, no heart transplant for you, they'll let you die. That's the truth. Does that sound like freedom to you? It doesn't sound like it to me. But we can push back. We can still win. We can still get there. We can get to a better place. They just did it in Italy. The media would have you think otherwise, and they're going to fight hard now. They'll push back, and that's why they pull out this fascist Nazi smear campaign every single time. And they're doing it here in Canada. They're doing it in the United States. If you're a MAGA supporter, now you're a domestic terrorist. You're an extremist. The Trump-led MAGA extremists. There's Biden standing up there at that podium with the blood red background. It looks like he's in the bowels of hell, dividing the country, talking about the MAGA extremists. It's the same damn thing. But is it true? I would say no. They're patriots, freedom fighters. And the other people on the other side of the equation, they think that they're on the right side. They think they're on the side of good because they're socialists. Oh, we need to give people free things. We need to just take care of people. We'll just write something on a piece of paper and legislate it into reality. But what do they really give us? They give us a country with the state being completely eliminated, ripped from the heart of the nation. Religion replaced by the state. By replacing religion with the state, it becomes a religion itself. And they expect you to worship at the altar of the state. They want you to get down on your knee and worship the state. And don't commit any sins. Don't you dare say anything against climate change, feminism. Any of these isms. If you push back against anything, gay rights, LGBTQ, all of these things, they are sacred cows. They divide people up into little groups. But you can't say anything against any of these initiatives. If you don't like electric cars, you'll get canceled. You say anything against any of these government initiatives, and you're a sinner. Climate change is the big one. If you were against masks, if you were against vaccines, if you didn't get vaccinated, you're a sinner. Well, they'll use the word denier because just like they call you a fascist, they like to roll out that word denier because it makes you seem, it puts you into the same category as a Holocaust denier, only attached to this other issue. And they always try to make it seem like it's the worst possible thing, to smear you in the worst possible way. That's what they do, man. That's their game. Comply, agree, echo, and attack anybody that disagrees. It's very cultish. And then they accuse freedom fighters, patriots, individuals who value their individual rights and freedoms. They accuse them of being the very thing that they are. When they say that you're a fascist, when they say that you're a Nazi, they're really just projecting. I'll go even further than that. You know, I've seen just over the last couple of years in particular, the far left has actually created what they describe as the far right. They've created their opposition. Not so many years ago, we were in a much better place where there was still civil discourse taking place. People could have conversations. You could disagree over issues without the entire country blowing up. I mean, you go back to the 60s, and yeah, there were civil rights uprisings, and all through history, you've had civil rights issues and economic issues and wars and volatility, to be sure. But as we progressed through time, there was always room for civil discourse, debate. Free speech was still alive. We still had something of a functional free media. And it allowed us to move forward and make corrections and improve on society. There wasn't an effort to fundamentally change our entire society, our entire system, to just throw everything out and replace it with this communistic, fascistic, globalist, build back better vision that they have. We kept moving forward and improving on things. And I think we kind of got to a pretty good place for a while, but still more work to be done. But then along came this managed decline, this initiative, this movement to tear everything down at an accelerated pace and build it all back better, following this crazy vision that is clearly getting us into deeper and deeper trouble as we go along. It's just, it's sad and discouraging. And when I meet people, even people from the other side of the political spectrum, I look at them and I listen to them, and it seems to me that a lot of them even know that what they're engaged in, what they're parroting, is a lie, that it's not real, but they participate in it anyway because they seem to be afraid. Indeed, I think they are. They're afraid to say anything against it. They're afraid to speak up against it because they're afraid of being canceled. It's the coercion. It's the authoritarianism. They're afraid of it. They won't speak up. It's like somebody has a gun to their head. It's like Get that jab or you don't have a job. You speak up, we'll cancel you on YouTube. You'll get canceled and thrown in Facebook jail. You say the wrong thing. It's like if you have a job, you don't criticize your boss. You just nod and smile, even if you think he's an idiot. But you just do it. So I guess if you're a doctor and you don't want to lose your job, you just whip out the needle and stick it in the arm, whether you believe in whatever it is you're injecting or not, because you want to keep your paycheck. You don't want to lose your lifestyle. If you're a cop and you're told, go down there and arrest those people, you just go down and do it, I guess. Because, hey, you don't want to lose your paycheck. You don't want to lose your lifestyle. You're afraid. You're afraid of losing everything you've worked for. You're afraid for your family, and I get it. It takes a lot of courage to stand up, speak your mind, but it's liberating. There's real freedom in it if you're able to do it. But you will be attacked. They will come for you. Oh, I know. I can tell you they will, and they do. We've been seeing it even in the last day or two. Well, I mean, at an amplified level, right? Jeremy McKenzie. They've been coming for him for quite a while. Everybody on that front, they come for them. And that's what I mean when I say that the far radical left has really created their political enemies. Because they have pushed so far, they've taken things too far. Because they've done that, because of all these government measures over the past couple of years, you have a lot of people who normally just would go about their daily lives, go to work, not pay much attention, who would just enjoy their lives, enjoy their families, go to work, produce, come home, take the weekend off, kick back, watch a little TV, and not really make any waves. But they've pushed people into a corner, a lot of people, and they've turned ordinary, regular, everyday Canadians and U.S. citizens into activists, people who are fighting for the country they thought they had, fighting for freedom. They've created their own enemies. It's like I've said many times, the government has pushed, you push a dog into a corner and you beat it with a stick enough and the dog's eventually going to fight back. Well, that's what I mean. They've created their own enemy. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We're seeing it. We're getting it. It's died down. It's subsided over the summer as people have gone back to their lives, tried to enjoy things. The fatigue of fighting, I think, has really taken a toll. But it's clearly far from over. And even as these mandates in Canada are lifted at the border at the end of this month, as of October 1st, people will be, they're bracing. We know there's something else coming. And there are so many other problems, and it's all intertwined. It's all related. This war in Ukraine, gas pipeline blown up, sabotaged, no accident. The consequences from that will be severe, especially in Europe, but it will even have impact here. Rising food prices, government restrictions on the amount of fertilizer that farmers are allowed to use. You telling me that's about the environment? No, that's about restricting food supply. Oh, climate change. Don't use fertilizer. Don't grow crops. Bunk. They want to cut the food supply. Even as you grow plants with nitrogen, even if nitrogen puts greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, do you know what the crops consume as they grow? Carbon dioxide. It's part of the ecosystem. It goes around and around in a circle. It's Mother Nature. And if you're religious, I would say it's God's will. Grow the hell out of those crops. Farmers are very responsible in the way they use those kinds of resources. They don't just spread that stuff on willy-nilly. They figure out exactly how much they need to use to get the optimal result. But there's the government assaulting our very existence. Restricted food supplies, reduced output, assault on our energy production and supply. They're going to let those people in Germany freeze. They don't care. And it's not about the environment. If it was about the environment, they'd be doing everything possible to bring this conflict, this war, this crazy, stupid war in Ukraine with Russia to an end. Every bomb that blows up, every time a jet goes into the air, every time a tank rolls out, burning diesel fuel, is that good for the environment? Is blowing the bits out of buildings and people and exploding shells, is that good for the environment? No. They're spewing more carbon into the air through that stupid war in a day than we probably generate all friggin' year over here just living. It's a giant lie. They don't care. They don't care about the people in Ukraine. They don't care about people around the world. We are insects to them. We fight their wars for them. They don't fight. They don't go to the front lines. They don't even send their kids to the front lines. We fight. We pay. We pay for the sins of previous governments, previous regimes. Always. They talk about truth. They talk about reconciliation. It was government policies always through history that dictated what happened on the ground, what happened with wars, what happened socially. And the soldiers that went to fight were following orders. So the elites over there and the elites over there, they send their soldiers out with their marching orders, and they're told, you will follow orders or you will be executed. Now you go over there and you kill those guys. And the guys on the other side are told, you go over there and kill those guys. And the soldiers go and they launch their missiles and they sling their arrows and they chop each other up with swords. And then 100 years later, 150 years later, for political purposes, to divert people and get people to fight, they dredge up the past and they get people upset with each other again. And they say, those guys are to blame and they shouldn't have done that. And these guys have to pay. And you know who pays? The middle class and the poor. Always. The workers, the people who go to work every day and produce. And the ones at the top just sit there and laugh. The political powerhouses, the people who have the political power, they sit back and they're the ones who manipulate everything. And whether they tax it away from us or take it by other means, by, say, printing money, they get it one way or another, and then they redistribute it in any way that they see fit, but they always make sure they get their cut off the top. So whether it's the Catholic Church apologizing to First Nations peoples over here, or the government, or the royal family, we pay, not them. We pay. They just borrow. They print. And if we have too much, and they don't have enough to pay the debts that they built up, they just print more money. And they say, well, here, paid in full. They don't really pay, though, do they? Because when they print the money that you and I save, it becomes worthless. They print the money, they pay their bills, we pay in inflation. And we're expected to pay for everything. We pay for the sins of the past. And we pay now as well. We pay by going to war, by sending our kids overseas to fight. Or we pay out of pocket to send weapons to other countries so that somebody else's kids can fight. But we pay every single time. For their sick pursuit of power and wealth. And this is not some Marxist rant that I'm on here. It's not about class warfare so much. In a way, it is about class, but that's not really at the heart of this. What this really is, this is global authoritarianism. It's globalism, and it's this communistic, fascistic, corporate government, one world government, totally undemocratic system that they seem to have overlaid onto everything. And it has taken hold, it has root in Western society now. And people have been so misled, our education system has been so inadequate that today people don't even know what is going on. That's why everyone is asleep, and not everyone, but a large portion of the population is completely asleep. They don't recognize it. They don't see it. They don't recognize it because it's a hybrid. It's not just a simple, oh, they're communists, so they're fascists. People are still trying to apply those labels, but people don't quite get it because they don't have the critical thinking skills needed. They don't have the historical references necessary to understand what it is that is unfolding right in front of their eyes. It's not their fault. It's just that they don't have the tools. And I'll tell you, these fascists and the communists have been out in the open because people have been taught that communism is a good thing, sort of. Oh, there were problems and it never really worked in the past, but the intentions are always good, right? So it's somehow at the core of it all, it's about sharing and being good to each other and we're all in it together and taking care of your neighbor and being responsible for everyone and working together. But if you don't, you're going to the gulag. But the fascists, they've been working underground. They've been in the shadows since World War II. And they have been among us. But they don't describe themselves as that. They don't come out and say, I'm a Nazi. They don't do that. Not really. Oh, there are little pockets of people who sort of, still use those symbols, and I guess they're out there. Less so in Canada, more so in the United States. Not very much of that in Canada at all. Not like that. But there are fascists here in both countries, real fascists. The really dangerous ones, they're the ones who have been lurking in the shadows, and they've been among us, and they're even in our government today, I guarantee it. We know who some of them are. Judge them not by what they say. Don't judge them by the political brand they wear. Judge them by their actions. Judge the media harshly that way too. Many of these fascists, Nazis, if you will, they don't even know that that's what they are. They've been absorbed into the system. They've become part of it. They don't have the education themselves to even understand that they've been indoctrinated into it, that they become part of the system, that they are part of a fascistic system, and that they are promoting it and pushing it forward. We saw that through the pandemic. Hillary Clinton said just the other day, she can't understand. She said, I always used to wonder, how could people follow someone like Hitler? How could that happen? She knows. She's been engaged in that exact same kind of behavior, in the same kind of psychological BS that's been used in the past, only far more sophisticated, to get people to comply and to enforce this authoritarian agenda. We saw it all through the pandemic, the way they turned neighbor against neighbor. In fact, they had neighbors turning neighbors in. Dividing families, dividing people into little groups so that people fight among each other. Dividing our communities. Using fear to control people all through this. Penalizing people, canceling people, taking people's jobs away because of a medical decision that they feel is their right to make. It isn't just that they feel that way, it is their right. But then the government comes along and actually strips people of those rights. That's what they've been doing. That is fascistic. That is fascism. Communists do it too. We've seen it throughout history. Whether it was Stalin starving farmers to death, or even today, the Uyghurs in China being persecuted for what? Because of what they are, who they are. It's just pure bigotry, scapegoating. And we've seen it over the past 2 years right here at home. People I thought that I knew well in my community, some of them honestly turned out to be monsters. Throw a little fear into them, and while they say that we're all in it together, really they've got their own selfish interests front and center and at heart. Expecting the entire world to buckle down, lock down, wear a mask to protect them. Because they don't want to take responsibility for themselves. They expect everyone else to take responsibility for them. They expect the government to take care of them. They flip it upside down. They flip the script. Everything is flipped with them. That's why nothing seems real. Not one damn thing is real with these people. The economy is fake. The money is fake. You don't have to be who you are. You can identify as anything you want to identify as. You don't have to be what you were born as. You can just be whatever you want to be. You can have yourself changed surgically. You can just say that you're something and therefore you are. It's not just I think, therefore I am. It's I've decided I am this for now until I decide I'm something else. And it's up to you to figure out what it is I am. And if you don't, then you're homophobic or misogynistic, or you're just a racist. But nothing is based on reality. As a result, they're just destroying everything. Destroying the education system. They're tearing it all down. In some cases, intentionally. They're destroying the economy. They're literally running it into the ground. Just print more money. The budget will balance itself, according to the Prime Minister, to Justin Trudeau. Budgets just have a way of balancing themselves. And we all pay. And we continue to pay. No reality anymore, man. Oh, yeah, and there are no Nazis in Ukraine. None. Doesn't exist. How could it exist? Zelensky's Jewish. Because the old labels don't apply, because the Jews in this particular case are not the scapegoat. It's the Russian-speaking people in the Donbass. Where tonight, I think the voting is wrapping up. Today was the last day of voting for the people there to determine whether they are going to remain in Ukraine, become independent, or join Russia. And I know that they were counting ballots already, and I think in some areas they were as high as 97% in favor of joining Russia. In some other areas, about 85%. So it's pretty clear where that vote is going and what the result is going to be. In the West, they instantly called it a sham. How could it be anything other than a sham, I guess, if the Ukrainian government is telling people they're not allowed to vote, and if they do, they could face up to 5, maybe even 10 years in jail for voting? Because it's a vote conducted by the Russians. But why would the people in that area vote to remain part of Ukraine when Ukraine has been shelling them and killing them since 2014 as part of this ultra-nationalistic national cleansing effort? Thousands of people have been killed before the Russians came in. It wouldn't make any sense for them to say, yeah, we want to remain part of Ukraine. Of course they're going to vote to leave. They asked the Russians to come in to protect them. That area used to be part of Russia at one time. That's why the people there speak Russian. But we in the West, we're not told that. We're just told that the voting there is a sham. And it's never explained in the mainstream media what the history is behind any of this. People don't know. People here just don't know. Not taught in school, not told through the mainstream media. All we know, if you just watch the mainstream media, is that Putin is a crazy guy trying to expand his borders. He's just like Hitler. And this vote, whatever it's about, is a big sham. So just ignore it. But that kind of narrative through mainstream media distribution has a lot of power. Nevertheless, the reality is those people are going to vote to be part of Russia. And we're going to see major escalation now. And how does that tie into what I'm talking about? Because it's all about information, misinformation, misdirection, censorship, about lies. Not to say that you're not getting some misinformation from the other side too. Every government does it. But somehow we need to get closer to the truth. Nothing is black and white. That's what makes it difficult to get to a better place. People like to think of things in very simplistic black and white terms. In a story, we need both sides of the story. Well, there are actually many sides to a story. There's a lot of history and a lot of gray area and a lot of disagreement and nuance. And things are rarely ever just black and white. It's never really just, oh, they're on the left and they're on the right. They're communists. Therefore, if you're a communist, if you're against that, then you must be on the other side, which would be, oh, you're a Nazi, you're on the far right. No, it's not like that. It's not that simple. Oh, they're on the left. Oh, they're on the right. It's not black and white. Shades of gray. Many different policies, many different aspects to every political ideology. And some people everybody pulls a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And it makes it difficult to really understand or recognize exactly what direction some things are going in sometimes and why we're experiencing what we're experiencing politically or what we're even fighting for sometimes, because it sometimes just isn't clear. And that's because things are not black and white. But sometimes you can tell the difference between right and wrong. Sometimes, a lot of the time, and I think even right now, it's pretty easy to identify what is right and wrong in a lot of these areas where we need to make decisions, where we have made decisions, where decisions have been made for us on our behalf by politicians, bureaucrats, and warmongers who really don't have our best interests at heart and are not looking out for the best interests of Canada, the United States, Canadians or Americans, or anybody even really around the world, because they are engaged in a game that gives them power, gives them wealth at our expense and at the expense of other people around the world. Well, we sit here and fight over whether we should be allowed to have plastic drinking straws or if we have to use paper straws. They're over there launching missiles, skimming off profits, blowing stuff up, and killing people. Then you turn on your TV and they tell you, you have to do with less. We don't want you to drive. We don't want you having the thermostat set above 75 degrees in your house. You're going to have to pay more for your natural gas. We're going to phase out all the fossil fuels. You're just going to have to pay more for that electricity. Use less water. Eat bugs. Cricket sandwich for you. Because, you just make too much carbon. You're breathing out too much carbon dioxide. You're a source of carbon. Oh, excuse me. I have to go over here. We have to drop a few more bombs. Oh, and your taxes are going up because it's all Putin's fault. More on that tomorrow. Gee, couldn't imagine who might have severed that gas line. And whoever blew that thing up, do you think they care about the environment? Look at all of the gas escaping from that pipeline, bubbling up to the surface, and then escaping into the atmosphere. Clearly, somebody blew that thing up. I can pretty much guess that it's probably the same people who sit there and preach to us about climate change. Let's just blow up the pipeline. Do you know how much gas that is? They're so full of crap. And then you get a populist politician elected in Italy, and they have to just work overtime and put it into overdrive to discredit and smear. And they always use the same tactics and the same narrative. Racism, white supremacist. Today I saw on Facebook, I don't have it queued up here, I'm just talking. Somebody posted a picture of what looked like a doll of the new leader of the the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, in a white suit to portray him as a white supremacist. Everybody that they hate, all their political enemies, they're all white supremacists. Even James Topp, they've tried to smear with that brush. Tar him up. Well, now, some media outlets are being sued by him for defamation. But the journalists engaged in that kind of behavior, that kind of work, they're rewarded. I noticed Rachel Gilmore from Global Television filed her first national report. For that network, just in this past week. She's been very active and very aggressive in attacking people for being white supremacists, using that kind of language, that kind of rhetoric. Very aggressive. She's not the only one. There's a little clique of extremely aggressive journalists that I've taken note of. I'm sure that we're all on their radar. I think it's sad. And for that behavior, they give you higher profile, probably a bigger paycheck. But somehow we'll come out of this. I don't know if Pierre Poilievre is what he says he is. People sit here and worry about whether he has ties to the WEF. He says no. I haven't seen any evidence that he is. He's rising in popularity, and they're afraid of him on the far left, I'll tell you that. So the smear campaigns will be amplified. We'll see. We'll see. And I'm not sure where Maxime Bernier with the People's Party of Canada will end up in all of this. And I'm not sure where they're going with the midterms. I expect we'll see a lot more Republicans elected. And then the next presidential election, I don't know. Still a lot of time between now and then. It's very clear that Trump looks like he'll run, that he wants to. But man, they want to cancel him, don't they, in the worst way? And then I've had people say, oh, yeah, but, he spoke at the WEF too. Well, that's true. He did. And other people say, and he gave us, Operation Warp Speed. He gave us the vaccine. That's true. That's true. But I've also kind of come to this conclusion. When you're in power and you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants like Trump was, dealing with things day by day, minute by minute, you're adapting. And depending on the information you have at your disposal, you're making decisions that you think are the best at the time. Now, some people might say that, oh, he must have known, these things in advance. Maybe. You really have to kind of step back, assess, and try to determine on your own whether you think that the person is genuine, whether that politician was really acting in the moment or with foreknowledge, if they were acting with pure intentions or in malice. Politics is a strange game, and politicians have to choose their words carefully, and they can't always just come out and say things bluntly or even take a solid, strong stand on a particular issue if they know that it will cost them too many votes at the time and maybe cost them an election. And that's why they sometimes lie. In fact, I think it was Professor John Mearsheimer who did an entire lecture on why politicians lie. I've come to the conclusion that sometimes politicians lie because they have pure intentions. And they know how politics is played. Other politicians lie because they'll just do anything to get power. So in the end, you still have to judge a politician by their actions, not by their words. The problem is you can't really judge a politician by their actions, their true actions, until they're actually in power. Because when they're in opposition, they just sit there and criticize. So again, they can kind of say a lot of things without really suffering the consequences of enacting or dealing with the results of what they say they would do, because it might not actually be done. So you roll the dice. Hard to say where you might end up. we shouldn't let the mainstream media control us. We shouldn't let our governments control us. At the end of the day, I just hope that we find a way back to a place where we embrace again individual rights and freedoms. And if we can start to view things through that lens, instead of through the lens of wokeism, I think we can get to a much better place. We also can't fall into this trap that we still remain in, this trap of looking at everything as either left or right. I don't think it really applies. You've got fascists and communists over there, and then over here, you've got this other thing called freedom. And it's something that really, true freedom, individual rights and freedoms, it isn't something that really exists in many places in the world and really rarely ever has. But that's what I'm fighting for. That's what I believe in. We have to get to that because we used to have something resembling that. It was never completely pure, but it was there. It can be again. And we don't have to tear it all down to get there. We just have to get back to it and find better ways to protect it. I think we can do that. That's partly what democracy is about. It's when you get off track, at some point you get a chance to correct. And democracy can be self-correcting in that way. Through elections, it'll be difficult because I know that even speaking just with some people who are running right now and where I live, we're having municipal elections. And there are efforts underway through freedom groups to help freedom-oriented candidates. But as I've had conversations with even some candidates on the freedom side who say they're fighting for freedom, we're running just ordinary, everyday kinds of people to be elected to these positions. But some of them that I've spoken to, they don't really understand what freedom means or how you get there. They instantly seem to go to this place because they're a politician now where they think that the government is going to provide the solution to all these problems. I just listened to a speech from somebody running for mayor in another city, and they're supposed to be a freedom-oriented candidate. And they talked about the homeless problem. And their solution was to take government buildings that are not being fully utilized and to take vacant buildings in the downtown and turn them into housing projects for the homeless. In other words, turn them into warehouses for homeless people. And people applauded. And I listened to that and I thought, man, you still don't get it. You're going to make a ghetto. You're not addressing the real problems. You're not addressing the problems of all the people who are on the street, who don't have homes. You're just saying, here's a home. That's always the problem with people who believe government has the solution. They see a problem like, say, homelessness. Well, we'll just build a house. Problem solved, right? You need a home, we'll just build you a home. And we'll do it with government money. So we just bypass the system, bypass the free market, bypass everything. We'll just tax these guys, take that money, and give this guy a house. Now he's not homeless anymore. In fact, what we'll do is we'll take a big building and we'll buy it with tax money that we tax from people who work. And we'll just take all the people who are not working, who are on the street, who are homeless, regardless of what their individual circumstance might be, and we'll just stick them in the warehouse for the homeless people downtown. Because ultimately, that is what the solution was that I was hearing, coming from this person who's supposed to be a freedom fighter. Because why? They have good intentions, but instantly they went from being a freedom fighter to being a politician and making this incredibly common mistake among politicians and bureaucrats where they simply go for this simplistic point A to point B solution where government controls it because it's something that they can tangibly just do without really understanding what's at the core of all the mechanisms and what caused the problem to begin with. Indeed, a lot of these problems are caused by government to begin with. And then the solution for these guys ends up being more government. In some cases, it's not because they're sinister or evil. It's just that they're elected and they think they have to do something, or they're asked what they're going to do about it. So they just, homeless, well, just build more houses. You see it all the time. And it never solves the problem. Because of mental illness, mental health issues, drug addiction, unemployment, societal pressure and family breakdown, people divorced, the court system applying pressure on one partner or the other, and alimony payments and inability to pay and leaving people impoverished and, trying to take care of kids. A whole host of problems. And sometimes people just don't want to live in government housing or whatever. Some of these people actually would prefer to live on the street because they have mental health issues. It's complicated. Just take a building and just stick them in there. That'll solve it. So I don't know. Be careful who you vote for. Really listen to what they say. We need credible, good quality people to be elected. We need freedom-focused, freedom-oriented people who will get in there and protect our rights. That has to be the foremost concern, as far as I'm concerned. I heard federal politicians in Canada yesterday in news conferences saying the number one job of any government is to protect the safety of the people. Safety. I think freedom, protecting our rights, that's the first thing. Protecting our rights. That should be the number one thing. Because if they don't protect our rights, they're abusing our rights. And it isn't even really difficult for them to do it. You know what protecting our rights means? It means leaving us alone. Not overstepping, not passing laws that infringe on our rights. Respecting us as people, as individuals. It's their job to protect our rights. And then after that, like I said, you know what I want the other day? I said, I want my politicians, I want our government, I just want them to pick up my garbage. Our politicians and our bureaucrats, you know what they are? They should be our garbage men. That's it. Pick up my damn garbage. It goes out every Tuesday here. Make sure it's picked up. That's your job. It's a service that you're supposed to provide. We pay for it through our taxes. Make sure you set it up so that the truck comes by and picks up my damn garbage. And if you don't pick up my garbage on Tuesdays, I'm not going to vote for you. In the next election, I'm going to get somebody in who knows how to pick up my garbage. That's what your job is. There are other services that you also are required to provide. Make sure the road is paved. I don't want a lot of potholes in it. I want my sewers to work. I want the water filtration plant to work. I don't want you dumping raw sewage into the river and then into the lake, because that would be bad for the environment. I want you to make sure that there's a police service that protects us. That maintains order. And when people are in trouble, you come to their assistance. Protect and serve. I want you to provide basic public services. That's what I'm paying for through my taxes. I want you to create an environment that is pro-business. I want you to reduce regulations on people. Get your boot off the neck of the people. Leave people alone to conduct their affairs freely. Let small businesses thrive. Leave small businesses alone. Reduce taxation, reduce government involvement in all of these industries as much as possible, so that people who are running these businesses can make their own choices, so that they can survive. Because every time you get involved as government in any industry, you skew things, you alter things, and you end up being the ones who get to pick the winners and losers in any given industry because you play favorites. You get to decide who gets government handouts and who gets an advantage, or who gets a tax break and who doesn't. And you create barriers to entry to industries through regulation to benefit sometimes your corporate friends, who then reimburse you for that favor with campaign contributions on the other side to keep you in power. And it becomes a corrupt system. If you're going to pass any laws or regulations, I want you to pass laws and regulations that further restrict what you're able to do as a politician to impose your will on the people. I want less of you, a lot less. I don't want you making medical choices for me or my family. I don't need it. I want to make those decisions for myself. And when I make those decisions, I don't want to be penalized for it because of your fascistic bigotry. I don't want to be told that I'm unclean because I didn't get something injected into me. I don't want to be told I can't go to a restaurant or get on a plane or a train or a bus because I didn't comply. Because that's wrong. That's medical bigotry. That's fascism. That's authoritarianism. Oh, you're so kind. Oh, you're getting rid of all of these mandates at the end of the month. And the ArriveCan app will only be voluntary. It'll be voluntary as of October 1st. Pfft. Voluntary for now. Thank you. Thank you for lifting those mandates. Thank you for letting me get on a plane again. I so appreciate it. You're so nice to me and to people like me. Thank you for putting my safety first. I want you to back off. back way the hell off. And don't ever do that again. And I want people in power there who will take steps to make sure that it never happens again. I want choice built back into the system so that I'm not entirely dependent on you. I want that so that everyone in our society has choice again and freedom so that we're not all dependent on you. I want you to stop. Back the hell off. Back off. And stop using that word freedom unless you really mean it. Because some of you, I can see right through you. You use that word, you throw it around. Now, after what you did, and then you wonder why people get upset. You wonder why there are people out there that you need to be afraid of. In reality, you don't need to be afraid of anybody. You just need to start treating people a little bit better. Back off. Leave me alone. But you won't. You won't. As long as you're in power, that's all you know. Because we've seen this before. We've seen this in history. We know what you are. We know where you're coming from. We've got your playbook now. It took us a long time to get it figured out, to see it. And a lot of people still don't see it and they're still not aware, but people are waking up more and more all the time. More people are cluing in. That's why you're afraid. And we just saw it in Italy. That's not fascism. That's people crying out for freedom. They want to be freed of their shackles, the shackles that you bound us with. You politicians, you left-wing, fascistic, communistic, globalist. We're not like you. We are peaceful. Inside, there's light. And all those people that you've fooled, the people that you've duped, misled, indoctrinated, even they are seeing through you. And when they wake up, you know what we're going to do? We're going to open our arms wide. And they already are open. And more of them are coming to us every single day. And we are embracing them and giving them a giant hug. And we're saying, welcome. Everybody. We've got your number. We will defeat you. We will win. It will take time. It will happen very, very slowly, and then it'll happen like that. And when it does, big embrace. Because we will defeat you with love and a recognition Every single one of us, every single person is an individual, truly unique. We will divide more than you've ever divided. We will divide people into individuals, not into groups by their group identity. We will embrace the differences among us all. Every single person, everyone unique as their fingerprint, as their retina. And you won't be able to stop it because inside people yearn for freedom and they want to be who they really are. They want reality, not a construct framed up within the confines of your political ideology, which encourages fantasy. We will win. It's inevitable. And you know the other reason we'll win? Because even as you try to take us towards some crazy, mixed up, transhuman future where we're all going to get drugged up, jacked in, uploaded into the metaverse, where we'll all, I guess, find some kind of digital immortality. Even as you push us toward that, you still haven't got it figured out. You still don't get it. You don't understand. You and your secular, godless vision of the future. You haven't got it figured out, man. You don't know what the meaning of life is. You think you're in control. Joe Biden sits there and talks about the battle for the soul of the nation. And he's got it so freaking wrong. You have it all wrong. You politicians, you bureaucrats, you futurists, you far left, fascistic, communistic schmucks. You don't get it. You can't have it. It won't work. Your digitized future is artificial. Everything about you is artificial. The thing you inject into us, even that is completely artificial. That thing that you're sticking in everybody around the world, that's some sort of a digital synthetic thing. It was made in a computer. It wasn't even made like the old ones. It's fake in its own way because it's synthetic. Everything about you guys is synthetic. Every single damn aspect of your ideology, your actions, your philosophy, your policies, it's all synthetic. It's about as real as pleather, aspartame, saccharin. Cancer. It's synthetic. You know what's not synthetic? You know what's genuine, what's real, what's at the core of everything? The human soul. You can upload some digital representation of my mind into the metaverse if you want. I don't really give a damn because at the end of the day, that's just a recording being manipulated by artificial intelligence to mimic what I was. It's not me. You can do it to every single one of us. And you can tell people that you're offering them immortality, because really that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about offering people safety, security, life, even everlasting life, playing God, even now into the future. Who wouldn't vote for immortality? Who wouldn't vote for life? But it's not real. It's synthetic. It's not real. You're not going to survive that way. We're not going to survive now either if we don't start telling the truth. Because it is a battle for the soul of the nation, but it's more than that. It's about something far more important than that. It's about our souls as individuals. That's what's really on the line. Our souls as individual. And as individuals, each one of us, collectively, we make up the soul of the nation because we are the people. We will win the battle for the soul of the nation because we will win the battle that will give us back our individual rights and freedoms. And when we do that, we will have the power to determine our own destiny as individuals and preserve our own souls. Because we'll be able to make our own choices, whether to turn left or to turn right, or to follow this moral path or this immoral path. And every one of us will have the right to that kind of self-determination again. We won't be forced to live the kind of life that you want us to live. You know, some people didn't want to get the thing in the arm because they felt that it was a sin. It went against their religion. But they did it because you forced them to, otherwise they might lose their job or face other punishments. That's wrong. People felt violated. You think they're going to continue to vote for you and support you when they feel like that? That's why people are not happy with you politicians. We want sovereignty. We want sovereignty over ourselves. In the way that God intended and that you are supposed to protect. And we want it all done within our system because we want our system back. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's probably the longest rant that I've ever had on this program. And I didn't even intend to come on here and do that tonight. But that's just where it went. And I haven't been looking at the comments at all, but I'm sure there are a few. Let's take a brief break. I'm not even going to cover all the other crap that I lined up tonight. We're just going to go to the phones because that's what I'm in the mood for. So that's what we're going to do. It's a free-for-all night here on Maverick News Channel. So stay with me. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
the New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program. For your mind.
Okay, the phone lines are open. Here's how you can join the conversation.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, you can call 1-833-975-3733 to join the conversation. And there we go. The layout is correct on the screen, and we'll go to our first caller. And I think it's John. How are you tonight?
No, it's Joe Biden again. You know, the guy who wants to build better.
Well, get to it, man, because I'm still waiting for the better part. In fact, I'm still waiting for the building part.
I can never fool you, Rick. Anyhow, you know, you looked at the Canadian dollar lately?
Not today.
American dollar is equal to $1.37.
Okay.
And guess what's you know what's going to happen? All our groceries, all our goods coming from the U.S. is going to much higher.
Yeah.
We're in trouble if it keeps going higher. Every day it goes higher and higher and higher.
Yep.
It's not a good situation.
No. Not at all.
And the Kremlins, yeah, they claim victory in the votes. It's I was reading it in the Moscow Times.
Yeah.
So it's a go there. And you know our natural gas. Guess where it's going, Trudeau? We're going to be short. Our gas is going to go through the roof. Our natural, the heating gas, because of we're going to send it to Europe.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, of course we are.
Of course we are.
Yep.
Trudeau's going to send it over there and say, "Hey,
yep.
Well, you know, you're our buddies.
That's right.
We'll do anything for you."
Yep.
Yeah.
Our people won't mind paying. Canadians won't mind paying more.
Oh yeah, we're gonna 10% more, 12% more. It's not a big deal, another 15% on food. That's okay.
A small price to pay for Ukrainian democracy, so Zelensky can throw people in jail for voting.
Yeah. So, but that dollar, I'm telling you, we're going to get shafted. What else? What else was there? Switzerland is a neutral country. You know that, eh?
Yeah.
Russia's got some of his kids hide in there if there's a war.
Yeah.
They got bomb shelter, and guess where the WEF headquarters is? Geneva, Switzerland. So I guess they'll be safe, eh?
Yep. Like I said, they don't go to war. We go to war for them. We think we'll have a war next week. All you guys, you get over there and fight that war for us. Yeah, get on over there because we kill those guys for us, eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. And but the other night we were talking about the Starlink satellites.
Mm-hmm.
Musk has got over 2,300 Starlink satellites. They're spying on everybody.
Yeah. If
you want to buy one, you can buy a Starlink and spy on people. You know, it's pretty. A lot of everybody's doing it. They're saying they're using it for real estate. You know, for look at real estate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Elon Musk, it's all government money that guy has, man. I'm telling you. He is part of the whole corporatocracy and technocracy. And I don't trust that guy. He's the guy who wants to jack us into the metaverse, man. I'm telling you.
You know, I bought Meta. It's tanking right now, but I think it's the future. Metaverse is the future. It's going to be like all the schools are going to have it. I was right about the internet, and I'm telling you, Meta is the future.
So are you gonna get your consciousness uploaded into the metaverse when they go to the artificial intelligence you? No.
I'm on no social media, period. No Facebook, no Twitter, no nothing. You know, I just have email. That's it. And, you know, I used to be on Facebook when it came out about 10 years ago. Oh, yeah. And all, there was a few other ones out there. It was like Twitter, but they're all gone now.
You know,
but I used to be really but no fun anymore. Yeah.
You'll laugh at this. When years ago, when Facebook first came out, I had some young people in their early 20s working for me. And I didn't know what Facebook was. And they were like, oh, we're on Facebook. And it started off, it was sort of like mostly just university kids were using it. And then younger people started to use it. And they were telling me about it. And they said, yeah, but you're too old. It's not for you. That's what I was told. I was told that old people weren't allowed to use Facebook. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm too old to use this online thing, but that's what they said. They didn't even want to show it to me. They thought they were like betraying some code. Yeah.
Now they're all on TikTok and the Instagram and you know.
Yeah. Now Facebook is the place for the old people, and they've moved on to these other platforms.
Yeah. Well, Metaverse is going to kick in now. I'm telling you that. It's the future, Metaverse. Do you see Walmart? What they've done? They're in the Metaverse, and you can go shopping in Walmart on the Metaverse.
I haven't checked that out yet.
Oh yeah, you can actually 3D. You can go in the store, buy things, and just buy them online. It's just like you're walking through the aisles. 3D, eh? I guess you can't feel them. You know, like me, when I go to the grocery store, I like to feel. You know, feel the apples and whatever I buy. You know, I like to feel it. You know, make sure.
I haven't experienced that yet. I did develop for an auto show when the pandemic started. I created a 360-degree virtual auto show system for somebody that I work for or did at the time. So I developed that so that people could see, like you could go to an auto show in a 360-degree environment, but I'm sure the Walmart thing is more sophisticated than that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you should do something on that. It's pretty interesting. It's getting in there. The auto show, that would be neat, like 3D auto show. I can handle that.
Yeah.
But, buying stuff, I got to look at it, see if it's bruised or there's nicks on it. Does it look fresh? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like just and then clothes, you got to make sure they fit and they, you know what I mean? It's your color, the different color online, and nothing better than looking at it.
Yeah. That sort of thing, at least in the short term, will make it difficult for small businesses to compete. They won't have access to that level of technology. So it'll become a barrier to entry. It'll be difficult.
Yeah. Well,
but in the long run, when the small businesses do get access to the technology, maybe it could level the playing field. Hard to say.
Well, the future is the metaverse. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Right now, it's just getting started. But as the computers get faster and better, and like the school, especially for learning, they're going to be really good for learning. Yeah. See that new BMW that changes colors, the paint?
No, I don't think so. Like I've seen, I think it's like chromatic paint changes colors depending on the way the light hits it. This sounds different though. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the BMW. It's made out of these diodes. I don't know the way they did these Germans, man. But it changes all different colors. You can from black to white. You can be driving around in a white, and then you could change it to black or red or blue, any color you like.
Oh.
Pretty fascinating, man, That's the technology. I don't know how much that thing's worth, but and that's all done with.
I'm going to get one of those, and then I can pretend to be James Bond, and I can drive around, and the government agents who are looking for conservatives won't be able to pick me out of the crowd because I'll just change the color of my car. Conservative driving down Highway 3, last seen turning left onto Highway 2 in a blue BMW. And then I'll just change it to red. And then they'll think I'm a liberal.
So, anybody out there, if Trudeau drafts you, do what Russia's doing. They're all breaking their legs, so that they can't walk, and they got a broken leg. They can't go fight. Oh, on that site today, I was looking at Moscow Times. They were showing the recruits. Oh, you should see that picture. It'll make you laugh, Rick, if you go on there. There's like 15 people so far being drafted. You should see the 15 people. It'll make you laugh.
What are you talking about? And why
the Moscow Times.
Oh, John, why are you reading all that Russian propaganda? You're going to get yourself thrown in jail.
The Moscow Times. You go in there and you hit the news button, and it shows where that's. There they are. Look at them all. Look. All right, 1, 2. There's 15 of them there. They got their bags packed, ready to go. Some got camouflage jackets on. And you got this old army guy there. Look at the people that they're drafting, man. It's funny. They don't look like soldiers to me. I'm sorry. But I guess you get whatever you can get,
I guess so.
But a lot of these young kids, they're breaking their legs on purpose, just not to go to war,
Well, I think the Moscow Times might be a little slanted in its coverage, but that's okay.
I don't know, but it's English. That's why I read it. It's in English. It's like RTTV. I watched that one.
Yeah,
From Russia.
I think that's kind of coming at it from the opposite perspective.
That's a good. I like that one though. It's a good channel. RT. Yeah. You
know what I've noticed about the difference in the coverage of the war between the West and Russia? When I've seen in the coverage from Russia, they are actually letting reporters go to the front lines. They're interviewing people on the front lines. They're interviewing civilians. They're interviewing soldiers. They're going to places where there has been a battle. They're showing damage. They're actually there showing you the real stuff, like on the front lines. You watch anything from the West? Yes.
Yeah.
But you watch the stuff from the West.
They only show what they want to.
The Ukrainians, they're not letting journalists go with them anywhere. You're not seeing anything from the front lines, no battle footage. It's all sanitized. There's no footage of any fighting. There's no footage of, sometimes you see distant explosions. That's it. You're not getting interviews from people on the front lines the way you do with the RT coverage. It's totally different. And the independent journalism is much different than what we're getting from the mainstream media in the West as well. Everything from the West, it's like it's talking heads. It's just people sitting talking about the politics of it and the strategy and so on, but you're not seeing the actual fighting. So I have to tell you, I'm highly suspect when I'm not being allowed to see the reality of something.
Yeah, they don't tell you the full story. It's all wishy-wash, That's the way they are.
Listen, John, we're going to move on because I've got calls stacked up here. Thank you.
Yeah, good show tonight, Rick. You did a really good job talking. You should do that more often. That was really good.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, bye.
And I think it's Paul. How are you tonight?
Yeah, it's Paul. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank you for that powerful monologue. It was really, 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 and we should memorize lots of it when it comes to meet the politicians that we have that argument.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That was just impromptu.
Yeah, no, it was really, really, really powerful, right? And usually people, like I said last time, lots of people they don't want to know, or they don't want to get involved, or they don't know at all. Let's say on your show, there were last week there were a few people. They were like commenting on your know how to say it. When you said something, they were commenting. They said we heard something different, and when you asked them when they heard it, they said we heard it at the CNN or CBC. Right?
Yeah.
It's lots of people who are still listening to your show, and they still didn't get it that mainstream media is like choir. There is the conductor, and there is the mainstream media as the members. And if somebody is off tune, they put him on the side, or at the back.
Yeah.
And people should start to recognize what is really real news and what is like really bad propaganda.
It's a difficult thing, but hopefully we help people cut through that and understand. Yeah.
Now, I have few points from last thing. If I won't take too much of your time.
Sure.
Regarding the the hurricane, the money for the disaster help went already to the Ukraine, and only what the Trudeau did. He is asking people to donate through the Red Cross because he wasted all the money which was supposed to be for those people. They ended up in Ukraine and another places where they were not should be at all.
Mm-hmm.
And now what maximum what he can do, he can match whatever people they give.
Yep.
And I think that's really big disgrace. What government can do, like waste the money which are for Canadians.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, that was really heartbreaking.
Yes, I agree.
Now another one is regarding that individual in Oakville with those states. I think that person is prematurely hacked by Schwab's doctor, whatever his name is, Hawaii or whatever it is. And that's how they want us to look like next few years. Because the ball, like for the slave, the ball with the chain on the foot is not in style anymore. Then we are gonna be wearing those stitches, and we are gonna have the information in those wherever we go, right?
Yep.
And I guess bigger things, then you may have more privileges and you can spend the bigger footprint or get the carbon credit.
I guess so.
For that, right?
Yes.
But I think they want us to look like that. People should take a look. Maybe we should transport that person to that Miami fashion show. Maybe those guys will get some ideas. How the fashion should look next couple of years.
That's a good idea. We should contact the school board there and forward that idea.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. But at least we should not be so harsh on him because maybe, like I said, maybe he's already hacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, last one is I don't know if people noticed that last 10, 15 years there used to be nice documentaries about the planet Earth. I think it was called the Blue Jewel or something like that of Earth. They were making those documentaries with those balloons and those big cinematographic cameras.
Okay.
You can find it anymore, like unless you really dig down, because now they are presenting us the planet Earth as the cancer patient. And the beauty has to go on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening really in front of our eyes.
Yeah, they do have a specific kind of story they're trying to tell us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the money goes with that climate change and everything. And
Yes.
and now you can see what they are showing to the young people. Not talking just the video games, those violent video games. Everything is turning into like degrades human dignity. Like importance or value of the life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see those movies shooting everywhere. The video games, right? Shooting arms. Killing people it's on daily basis. Like I think they teach or they try to bring some kind of like habit that killing person it's nothing, right? It's just daily.
Yeah,
I think that would be all. Yeah, all what I wanted to say.
Okay.
I had more of that, but I put it on the paper and I'll ask if I can find
That's
it.
okay.
Then next time I will look for it. Again,
Excellent.
thank you for that monologue. It was really good, and
thank you.
I like I said, I have to play it, replay it, and write it down, and we have to use it because my MP, when I call them, there is somebody who takes the message, or they don't. The box to take the message is completely full, and you see them only when they come to your steps, when a couple of days before election, right?
Yes.
And with something like this, you have to chase them away.
Thank you very much for the call. I appreciate the comments.
Okay.
Very kind of you.
Okay, Rick, thank you very much,
All
and see you next time.
You bet. We're going to move on now and talk with, I'm not sure who it is. Is it Helen?
Yeah, Helen.
How are you?
Hi, Rick. Thanks, Paul, for calling in. And you have some very wise words. Well, I don't like calling in that much, but when something is so profound and beautiful and from the heart, I have to call because it resonates throughout the whole universe. And we need more of that heartfelt, flowing, spontaneous rants, if you want to call them, but they're reflection of your soul. And this is where we want to get at, is that people's hearts must be open and their soul connected to the Creator. So I really like that. And we don't have much of that as an example. So that's why I called in. It was similar to last week I think it was on Thursday, when you had the show from the House of Commons where the Summit team hockey players were there in Ottawa in the House of Commons.
Yep.
And that certainly stirred my soul. We need that. Most of the time we go through life often not awakening the heart or the soul, and we lose who we are because of that.
Yes.
John should, as far as John goes, I think that John should not waste his time on Russian TV. I know of, I feel it's the young people breaking their legs just to not go in the army. I don't know if I would believe that. I do know of somebody who was a Canadian, fought for freedom quite a bit in Canada. His life he didn't feel very safe here, so we moved to Switzerland, thinking that that would be a better place, because he was apparently quite an activist here. At least my girlfriend told me that. And he then left Switzerland a few years ago and has lived in Rome for a while. So with the new leader there, I'm sure he's feeling more comfortable there. As far as prices go, it's incredible. It's the first time I thought today that, I'm thinking of how much gas I use when I go out, and I don't go out that much because I love my yard and I love nature. So why bother going into the city? And I said to myself, if I go to the city a couple times a month, that's enough, because the price of gas is getting ridiculous, and I have to cut back everywhere just to make sure that I can make ends meet at the end of the month. And yet the food prices, $6.49 for a pound of butter. And yet somebody mentioned on, I think it was on your show, that they paid, I think it was $10.99 for butter.
Is that right?
And that we may not have, it at Christmas time. And I have noticed the shelves not being full, for sure. And it's apparent. I think it's apparent to me that there seems to be less truck traffic out on the road. That deliveries, and I believe that it's being controlled by Ottawa, by our totalitarian government. And what else should I say? I spoke to Well, when I go out, I always speak to lots of people. But I spoke to a very nice lady today, and she had an older daughter, quite a bit older, and then she had 3 younger children, and happened to notice the two younger children playing together, and, you know, climbing inside where there would be no groceries, and he would hide there. And so I made a comment to her because I met her coming out of the store, and I said, I love that child is so free, and so she showed me what was in his what he bought. But so many children are just so live in fear that they have no ability to have spontaneity and to realize that here is this lady that's trying to connect with you and talk to you. And he was so free in his speech and showing me stuff. So we talked after, and she said her 3 younger children were homeschooled, and they were all young, very young. And the older one, definitely, she said, we knew that she was not being treated right, and that it wasn't to her benefit. And I could see mental issues with that child. And now I don't know if she was born that way, or if she felt so traumatized being in the system. But it was just a joy speaking to the lady. So I gave her my trustee card, and I gave her, when I ran for trustee, school board trustee, 3 times. And then I gave her a business card that I once had. It was called Beyond Global Education, with a K, for knowledge, knowing, and to know. It goes back to Socrates. Mm-hmm. When he talked about the education system and the importance of going into the marketplace and learning about money and finances and talking to the people. And that's really where a lot of my learning took place, is when I went into City Hall and observed City Hall and met mentors who took me under their wing, and then, you know, went to the education system and went to the court system. We have to know our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And how it functions, and get good people in there with common sense and with the right values and a moral compass.
Yes. Yep. Well, I know there are more people running for municipal office positions in Ontario this time around that are freedom oriented. So I'm optimistic about that.
Good. Well, I know somebody from Halton, Haulton, the same place as he called me the other day, and he was on the board for 10 years, and he eventually had to give up because it's so hard on you when you're about the only trustee or counselor on the board, and so he finally gave up. But he has lots of stories to tell about City Hall and the complications, and the fraud, and the corruptions, or the amount of money they waste.
Yeah.
So if you ever want his number, he's more than willing. I'm sure he would be more than willing to talk to you on that.
Okay. Well, you know, I'll put the email address up on the screen, and if you want to email me any information, you can certainly do that. Probably better to email it to me than share that information in public over the airwaves here. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, I know my boundaries. So I'm sure I would ask him first, but I'm sure he's on another station sometimes. He talks. So, and he comes from Ontario. So you have, and not that far from you.
I think I might know who you're talking about.
And it's interesting. And it's interesting how the trustees won't even talk when they're asked questions. Everybody is all silent, so they must have lots to hide.
Yeah. Listen, we got to move on because we've got another call on the queue here. He's been waiting for quite a while.
Yep, no problem.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You take care. And we're going to move on here to, I think it's Marty. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you doing, Rick?
Just fine. What's going
on? Do you remember probably about maybe 10 days ago or 2 weeks or so ago, I asked you the question about Alberta separation and Artur Pawlowski becoming the new leader?
Yes.
And and you said that you're gonna send, or you had a journalist out in Alberta to cover it. I was just wondering, actually, if follow up on that, if you got a hold of your journalist, or
I've been speaking to people. You mean with regard to getting Pastor Arthur on the broadcast? You mean?
well, if you could actually do that, I think that'd be great. But from my understanding is that you're gonna have one of your journalists come out, figure out what's going on, do a little more research in Alberta.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things going on. Yes, I will be reaching out to. We will at some point, I think, have the reporter who works out in Alberta back on the program. In addition, I'm working on getting some of those politicians involved in the leadership race for the United Conservative Party on the show.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that will happen. John made contact with some of them over the weekend here from our place because he's out in Alberta. So I think that might happen, those interviews. So all of that's kind of in the works. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you'd, I don't know if you spoke with Pastor Arthur before or not.
No, I haven't. I've never met him.
Well, it's easy to get in touch with him by email.
Okay.
And I think he'd be a big bonus to your program.
Yeah, I'd love to have Pastor Arthur on here. I'd love to have him on the show. And I'm sure we will at some point.
And if you do want it, just go to streetpreacher.ca. And his email is right there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he'd appreciate being on your show.
Yeah, we'll get him on here. We'll get him some time. He'd be great to have him on.
Yeah, he's a very good man, and he stands up for Canadians.
Yes.
Canadian rights.
He sure does.
Right?
Yep.
So yeah, I'd love to hear him on your show. I would absolutely love to hear it.
I would love to have him on. So we're working on that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have Danielle Smith on here very much as well.
Yeah.
And there's some other fairly big names in politics from that area that we're also working on. And I'm just waiting for responses back. So I think some of that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you're working on it. And that's basically all I have to say. I don't want to take up everybody else's time either. So.
Well, I appreciate the call very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you too, Rick.
Okay. You have a great night. And make sure you call back soon. Talk to you later.
I will.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
And folks, it was supposed to be a shorter broadcast tonight, but it is now 9:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to wrap it up there for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and participating in the program tonight. Greatly appreciated. Also appreciate all the support you've provided. If you haven't, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. If you haven't liked, please like. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps us get the channel in front of more people and spread the message of freedom everywhere. And please consider subscribing over on Rumble. I just keep saying it and repeating it, but it is actually very important. And if you would consider making a donation at freedomreporters.com, that helps fund the operation here. So we greatly appreciate that kind of support as well. That takes you right to the donation page. But we should be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time again. What's tomorrow? Wednesday already. Wow, the week is flying by. But we will return with another program tomorrow night. And I hope you all found it worthwhile tuning in I think it was overall not a bad night. And just want to say thanks. Thank you very much. We'll be back with more antivirus programs for your mind tomorrow night on The Flip Side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.